During this weekly fragrance rotation, it happened to be Christmas, and I also put out a bunch of new stuff, so stay tuned. Hey, what's going on? Hunter here and welcome back to my channel where I upload weekly fragrance content, so you already know what to do. Hit the subscribe button down below and also make sure to follow me over on my Instagram page. But that's right, another week, another weekly fragrance rotation. Even though I know I did skip one or two prior weeks, unfortunately, you guys have been asking about it, but we are back for this week and hopefully every single week going forward because I love this series and you guys do as well. And if you aren't familiar with this series, I actually basically go over what fragrance I wore, how many sprays, the kind of weather, and of course if that particular fragrance got any compliments or not. So let's just get right into Sunday and not waste any more time. Alright, so on Sunday it happened to be Christmas Eve and the weather was sort of in the low 50s and cloudy outside, which is very unusual, especially where I'm from. Most of the time during Christmas it's extremely cold and snowy, but this time we actually had a warm Christmas, which was very, very different than what I'm used to. But on Christmas Eve, I actually put out a very classy Irish fragrance, and it is coming from BDK Parfums, and this is of course Gris Charnel Extrait. One of my favorite Irish-based fragrances, hands down. When you think of the note, you probably think of course of Dior Homme or even Valentino Uomo Intense. This though is absolutely stunning. You get this tea note, it's very herbal green. You get a very creamy, waxy iris in here, along with this leather. It's slightly kind of boozy as well, very dark and mysterious. And I did review this, of course, a couple months ago, and this stuff has been getting so much hype lately. And that's actually for good reason. I never actually tried the original Gris Charnel, but the Extrait is something to behold without a doubt. And for Christmas Eve, I basically just went out to dinner, did our traditions as a family and things like that. I did go with 6 sprays of the Extrait, and this stuff is very, very potent, so be cautious about that. This is the kind of fragrance that almost wears you rather than you wearing it, to be honest with you. No compliments on that day, but yeah, that's what I chose for Christmas Eve, is this beauty. Monday was actually the day of Christmas, so if any of you guys watching this actually celebrate Christmas, I hope you enjoyed your holiday, spent some quality time with family, etc. Now, on that day, it was actually in the high 50s, so even warmer than the day prior, and kind of cloudy outside as well. And for my Christmas scent of the day, I had to go with this because it literally smells like Christmas in a bottle to me, and I've been waiting to pull it out for this particular day, and it is, of course, M. Michelef's Desire Toxic. Now, of course, I had to be a little bit toxic for Christmas. No, I'm just playing with you guys, but yeah, like I said, holiday in a bottle. It's very green, kind of piney, very spicy. You get the cardamom, I believe there's nutmeg in here. And what's kind of weird about it and where that toxic name I believe comes from is the cannabis note in here, which gives it of course a green herbal touch and a little bit unique. And it does sort of get compared to something like Parfums de Marly's Layton with less vanilla. So if you love Layton, you probably will still like this one. It's completely different, but in the same kind of realm and genre of the Layton masterpiece right there. One of my favorites from Parfums de Marly, but that's what I chose to wear. I did go with 10 sprays of Desire Toxic for Christmas. And this honestly might be my go-to Christmas scent of the day going forward, unless of course I come across something different that captures that holiday to a T. And I don't think a lot of people talk about this actually smelling like Christmas, but for me, that's the exact vibe I get. No compliments on that day, but man, I was absolutely enjoying this one. Let me know down below the fragrance you guys wore for Christmas. I'm very curious. So heading into Tuesday, it was in the mid 50s and actually rainy outside, surprisingly. And I put out a new fragrance in my collection that I actually got for Christmas. So of course I had to rock it. And I went with Hermès's H24. This is the original Eau de Toilette. I know they now have an Eau de Parfum flanker of it. And for me, this is a fragrance that I kind of bypassed every single time I came across it. For some reason, I always thought it was a little bit more of a boring release from the house of Hermès, which is known to be quality. Very, very kind of unique fragrances like Terre Hermès. I do own an Eau Intense vetiver over there. And to be honest with you, after wearing this one on Tuesday, I have changed my mind and prefer this over the Terre Hermès collection without a doubt, especially for me personally, because this is a very modern aromatic fragrance. It's a little bit metallic as well. And believe it or not, it's extremely unique for being a designer release, and I just enjoyed the wearing experience from like the top, mid, and base. It's very, very pleasant and easygoing. Now on that day, I did do 6 sprays of H24, got no compliments. I don't recall doing much on Tuesday, besides kind of like just unwinding from the holiday and things like that, just relaxing. And this is actually a perfect relaxing fragrance because of how smooth and peaceful H24 comes across. So that's what I rocked for Tuesday. For Wednesday, it was in the low 50s and also a rainy day outside. And I put out yet again a new fragrance I got for Christmas, and it is coming from Le Labo. This is Santal 33. Now, if you are familiar with my channel, I haven't talked the best about this particular fragrance. And this is actually probably one of the most iconic niche fragrances on the entire market. A lot of people know about this one that's not even into fragrances like me and you. Surprisingly, it's like a kind of hipster fragrance in my opinion. And to be honest with you, it's sort of my fault for falsely judging Santal 33 because I've actually never worn the original Santal 33. I have smelled it on people before, but I've always owned clones of this fragrance, and the clones were absolutely terrible. So if you're looking for a clone of Santal 33, stay away from it, save up and get the original because they don't even come close. I've always talked about this fragrance as smelling like pickle juice, and those clones absolutely do. It smells like pickles in my opinion, like dill pickles. This, however, is much more deeper, has much more depth and character to it, and just a lot more going on. You do still get that sort of pickly sandalwood in here, but that's not the only thing like the clones. It was just full on pickle juice in my opinion. You get that sort of in this from the sandalwood, but there's like, you get leather in here, a very rugged leather that kind of smells like leather bound books. You also get this green herbal papyrus. And how I would describe this one, it's kind of like going into a library that has maybe like sandalwood tables. You have the leather bound books all over the place, a little bit dusty. That is the exact vibe that Santal 33 gives off, and I actually like it now. Not my favorite DNA by any means, but I do have an appreciation for it after getting a full wearing experience and getting to know it. On that day, I actually did do 10 sprays of Santal 33. And going into this one, I knew that it was going to be strong from what people said and things like that, which it is actually a very strong, potent fragrance that will last you easily all day. So you don't necessarily need 10 sprays, but that's what I decided to go with. I did get a compliment from a coworker. She came over, asked me what I was wearing, and then she actually recognized the fragrance because this is actually her boyfriend's signature scent. So that just goes to show you as well how popular Santal 33 is. A lot of people are wearing this one, despite the hefty price tag of being well over $200, around $300, especially if you get the bigger bottle. At the end of the day, I'm glad to have this iconic fragrance in my collection. Yet again, for Thursday, it was in the low 50s and rainy outside, so I guess we basically had a rainy Christmas week rather than a snowy Christmas week, which is weird. However, I pulled out yet again another brand new fragrance in my collection that I got for Christmas, and it is Paco Rabanne's Phantom. Now, surprisingly, I never actually smelled this fragrance before or tested it. I have, of course, heard about it, and you can't forget this bottle, the robot bottle, which a lot of people might think is a little bit tacky, but I think it stands out on a fragrance shelf and looks like unlike anything else, behind me at least. So yeah, this is what I wore. Now, with this fragrance, in my opinion, Paco Rabanne does some of the best sweet fragrances when it comes to designers. Of course, you have the 1 Million collection, which are ultra sweet, like gummy sweet, playful fragrances, clubbing fragrances, things like that is what Paco Rabanne is known for. This one is no different. I do get a fruity, sweet apple in here, a little bit spicy as well, and I think it is a solid release. Of course, it is a little bit synthetic. That's not even a question when it comes to this fragrance, but at the end of the day, synthetics aren't the worst. Synthetics are needed in fragrances, so don't expect this to smell natural or anything like that. It's just more of a playful, fun, clubbing style fragrance, and for what it does, I think it nails it. On that day, I did do 10 sprays of Phantom. It was actually pretty strong for being an eau de toilette concentration. I know they also just recently came out with a black Phantom bottle, which is a parfum. Haven't smelled that one, no experience. The performance is still good. The projection was very, very heavy, and I did get a compliment from a coworker A few hours into the day after applying this one, she said it smelled really good and asked me what I was wearing. Without a doubt, this will get you compliments, just like the 1 millions get a ton of compliments as well. So if that's what you're looking for, this might be one to check out. All right, the weather is starting to get a little bit colder because on Friday it was in the low 40s and cloudy outside. And on that day, I was in a mood for a fougere fragrance for some reason. And this is one of my favorites in my collection, and I haven't reached for it in quite some time. I can't wear all these fragrances you see behind me. Sometimes I get to wear a fragrance once a year, etc. And I was in the mood for this beauty, and it is, of course, Raja Parfum's Scandal Parfum Cologne in this beautiful purple hue bottle. Now, if you love fougeres, I think this is one you absolutely must check out, in my opinion. Has a absolutely beautiful, natural, spicy lavender in the opening. But in my opinion, the dry down is the best part, surprisingly, because you get this salty ambergris, which I think Raja does the absolute best. It just sort of adds this touch of luxuriousness in the base of Scandal. Later on in the evening, I actually did go out to dinner, and my mother actually did compliment it and said it smelled really good. And it obviously does have a very old school kind of vibe about it. So if you don't like old school aromatic fougere fragrances, this is not going to be for you at all. However, if you do appreciate that kind of genre of perfumery, this is definitely one of the tops in my entire collection. And tomorrow I actually put out yet again another fougere that I just bought. Saturday happened to be the coldest day of the week, being in the high 30s and cloudy outside, and I put out, like I said, another fougere fragrance that I just purchased, and it is Tom Ford's Fougere d'Argent. Now, I've heard so much about this fragrance. I used to think it was discontinued, but it's not. They still sell this one. They did actually discontinue Fougere Platine, which I do own as well. Not the biggest fan of that one, and of course Beau de Jour in the private blend collection, which I own also. Moved to the signature, but this is, I guess, the only fougere left in the private blends, at least with that name, and it's honestly very, very solid. Because in the opening, you get this extremely unique blend of lavender, this kind of zesty, sparkling and ginger, and this fruity, citrusy mandarin note. Now, that is a combination that I've never heard about or actually never smelled before in any fragrance. An aromatic kind of ginger, mandarin orange sort of vibe, and it works perfectly in here. And it smells extremely expensive, and it sort of dries down to this nutty kind of almost creamy tonka bean. And I think for any like fougere aficionado, I think you will appreciate this one. Beau de Jour has always been my favorite fougere from Tom Ford, or actually maybe even favorite fougere of all time, at least in my collection. This one is absolutely giving it a run for its money for that #1 spot. I'll have to wear it more, of course, test it, and then review it down the line. But yeah, it's very, very good. Now, on that day, I did do 6 sprays of Fougere d'Argent. Went shopping again. I bought some stuff at rack stores, etc. that you'll see next week in the weekly fragrance rotation. But that's going to do it for my weekly fragrance rotation this week. Let me know down below the fragrances you guys decided to wear, and also what you guys wore on Christmas. I'm very curious about that. But besides that, leave a like, subscribe below if you haven't already, and you already know I'll catch all of you back here in my next upload. Take care, everybody.